Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt Beynon. I'm going to be conducting this webinar today. To be honest, it's a little bit of a new experience for me. I think my many years of amateur podcasting are going to come into play here. Just kidding. I doubt it's highly transferable. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for joining us in the excitement that our whole industry is feeling around agentic engineering, AI acceleration. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties getting Jeff, our CEO, on here, but that's fine. We'll just wait a minute as that happens. I know that there is a rule with technology, which is everything's going to go perfectly until you're presenting to somebody. And so we're just trying to follow that rule. It's just that's the way it is. I am streaming today from the Tech9 office in Lehi, Utah. We're over by Thanksgiving Point. And for those that may be less familiar with Tech9, we are a global company. We have a lot of Tech9ers around the world. We've got a lot in India, several Latin American countries, and then all across the United States. I live in New England, get the chance to come here to Utah several times a year. And then we have people West Coast, middle of the country, but primarily in Utah. We're based here in Silicon Slopes. And then our clients are all around the country as well. And we have been no exception to the agentic engineering craze. A lot of constant evolution. And there is a little bit of irony when it comes to training on agentic engineering practices because it's constantly changing. So it's a little bit of one of those things where as soon as the ink dries, it's outdated, but that's okay. You can't just say nothing about it just because something is going to change in a few months and completely evolve how we do things. So happy to share our insight into what has been working for us, where things have been going, and some of the important lessons we've learned, starting with when to slow down, which is the content we're going to do today. So I think we're going to start. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. All right. When to slow down. Expert judgment in AI accelerated engineering. So it is a little bit of a buzzkill to focus on slowing down. So I'm going to try and frame that slowing down phrase within the context of we're still trying to go fast. Speed is such a critical part of the evolution of agentic engineering. And so we want to keep speed. Speed matters a lot, but what you don't want to do is go the wrong direction. So that's kind of the key here. So the speed is real. I have been just absolutely blown away how fast I'm able to develop new apps, build websites, design systems. My background, I guess I didn't really introduce my background. I am the CPO of Tech9, and my background is in product and UX. So I lead a team of product designers here, and I also engage in the strategic planning for our clients' initiatives, primarily around projects. And then we build agentic teams. In other words, small teams that deliver at the rate of formerly larger teams. And then we also embed experts, we'll just say roles, that can join a company's team and bring agentic expertise to those teams. So the speed is real. We've got teams of one. That's how crazy speed has become. One full stack engineer that has the expertise to build an entire system, and it's really, really cool, really exciting. So yeah, AI does affect speed, but it doesn't change the how critical it is to go the right direction. So you don't want to build the wrong thing in the wrong direction. Otherwise, it's a waste. I will say one caveat. When you're a new company, when you're building a new product and you're trying to find product market fit and meet user needs, it's okay to build the wrong thing fast because you're learning from it. But as stakes evolve, and especially as you have a living product, getting it wrong has higher stakes, and you want to get it wrong as close to right as possible without causing grief to your customers and users. So who cares about how fast you're going if it's not taking you to the right place? So we are going to begin with a dashboard example. I'll give some of this content here, and then I think we're going to do a poll here in a second. This is an example. It's fictional, but it's based on some real experiences that I've seen. I'm sure many of you have, where something can go from an idea to shipping it in 1 hour because of AI acceleration. So, hey, we have a good idea. AI, let's make this thing. Oh, it looks amazing. Let's make it blue. Oh, now it looks even better. Send it to the devs. Please ship this. I mean, if you're doing it in Claude Code, you could even ship it yourself. But there are risks involved in this process in 1 hour. So let's do a poll. The first poll, let's see if it still contextually makes sense. I was supposed to do it at the top of the call and I forgot, but I think it still applies here. So let's see. All right. So when AI accelerates your team's output, what worries you most? Moving fast in the wrong direction. That's kind of speaking to this problem definition. Quality and correctness. So that might be reviewing here, especially in terms of code. My team losing critical skills. Like, okay, I need them to be experts, but now AI is doing everything. Or maybe not much. Maybe you're in a situation where so far it's actually really working. We're not very worried. So take a second to vote on that. Wish we had some Jeopardy music going here. Although that might trick people into thinking there's a right and wrong answer, which there's not. Okay. I like seeing the live poll results coming in here. We'll give it another 20 seconds and then we'll see. Ooh, dead heat. I actually don't know if people watching this can see the live results. So maybe I'm the only one privy to seeing this, but it's actually pretty close between two of these answers. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any last second votes? Okay. Ooh, we did get a last second vote and then it locked in. All right. So quality and correctness is mostly on the top of people's minds. And then the second most popular vote was moving fast in the wrong direction. We got a little bit of voting on teams losing critical skills, but nobody is like without any worry. And that's good because I think any new emerging technology, you need to have some caution in your optimism. So good. Moving fast in the wrong direction and quality and correctness. Let's use this dashboard example to substantiate that thought. So the reason I called it a dashboard example is because in this example, let's just say a decision maker defined the problem of the dashboard as, hey, I have a good idea. And their good idea was, let's create an overview page. And that overview is going to be the default landing page for this user, Sarah. And we want to have, and in my imaginary scenario, they took a screenshot of some other dashboard and they said, hey, Claude, can you build me a dashboard that follows this pattern? And then it created this. And they're like, wow, this is so cool. This looks awesome. Now my company Nova Pay, this is a fake name, nobody stress, it looks so much more modern. I love the, now this is a combination of both user experience and user interface, because they're saying, hey, now we have the experience of this overview, but you're also saying, hey, now we have this cool UI. Look at the colors and the data viz. And this is, I'm going to go down and then back up. This is a C+ solution. Part of what makes it C+ is some things in usability that are breaking. Like, this is not visually legible. A lot of people would struggle to read this, and at the very least, they wouldn't see it when they're browsing this. This specific user, Sarah, is primarily using this tool to solve unresolved data requests. And so in this somewhat fictional use case, you just made the user's life a little harder by introducing this cool new thing that's actually not very beneficial. So I said C+, I mean, I don't know. It's an arbitrary grade, but it is a phenomenon that we see a lot with AI, which is aesthetic bias that tricks you into thinking that something is good. Now, we don't have a before state, so maybe it was horrible before, but in this imaginary scenario, maybe Sarah's time on task was actually a little quicker because it didn't have a dashboard and she just landed right on the page where she resolves these things. And so now it's worse. So always tricky with imaginary scenarios. But the principle here that I was hoping to illustrate is the aesthetic bias that AI can give you because it looks done and it looks nice and you get excited about it, but it actually can be poor, right? So going back to this agentic delivery flow, this is a high-level depiction that I've created that kind of genericizes these phases. Now, you could make one that's fewer steps, and you certainly can make one that's more. What I'm trying to do from a product perspective is kind of genericize this process, because this applies to both design and development. Problem definition is the first step, and then you can use AI generation to create an output that addresses that problem, okay? Now, what you see that it creates, you may do some prompt refinement. Certainly, step 4 is optional, but most likely you're going to want to make some tweaks and refinements based on what you see. Now, then AI would generate, what you've refined. And then you'd have a pre-release review. Basically, here's the thing now, let's decide if we're going to ship it, and then you ship it. So with that in mind, let's do the second poll. All right, so in your opinion or perspective, your experience, what step do teams most often skip or shortcut? Like, I think that this is a little bit of a point of view question, because it doesn't mean that you're saying objectively this is what everyone does, but I'd be curious, in your experience, what do they skip most often? I'll give that a couple minutes. All right, got a lot of momentum on prompt refinement, a lot of momentum on reviewing AI output, and then problem definition quite a bit lower. All right, I think we can lock that in. It was pretty evenly split between reviewing the AI output and the refinement of that prompt. I'm surprised that less on problem definition, but I think that that's a highly variable. It's a harder one to define. So there we go. Okay, so this is like kind of my gray Google Slides version of something, and so I made another version that does this. But I'm gonna navigate to this screen that I made to talk through it more. but problem definition, the review of AI output, and prompt refinement. Nope. And then pre-release review. These are the ones that I pulled on because these are the expert checkpoints. So I guess this is getting to the crux of the matter, which is when you trust AI to do too many of these things without expert input, you run the risk of missing an opportunity to create better outputs at the speed that you're shooting for. So I'm going to go forward and then I'm going to go back because I want to contextualize this a little bit more. So the 4 moments that matter are problem definition, reviewing AI output, prompt refinement, and pre-release review. And this is what I wanted to jump to. You do still need experts in this age of agentic engineering. You just don't need as much of their time on an individual product. Like this is painfully obvious for those of us who have been seeing how this evolves. In the past, when I would engage with like a net new product, let's say I'm talking with a business owner and they're wanting to create a new product, we would always want to begin with a design engagement because design is one of the most powerful ways to refine, scope, and nail the user or customer objective. Well, the minimum for this was 6 weeks, a 6-week design engagement to refine scope and to essentially take a lot of documentation or stuff that's in people's brains and pour it into Figma to create even just a low fidelity prototype that captures how vast this is. Well, now at Tech9, we are able to engage in a preliminary strategy engagement that includes design scope definition, and it can take days or a week. We can use vibe coding and synthesizing our conversations, and it can take screenshots of our user experience maps, and it can go so fast. And so an expert that may have required 6 weeks can do that in 1 week. It's incredible. And so you just don't need as much time from those experts, but you need them, especially at that beginning part. And then as it refines, you need them to be able to check in and see those higher leverage moments. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to navigate to this thing that I made. I'm going to zoom in, make sure it's legible enough. Okay. So when I say human driven, I really am just saying like it's AI assisted, but it's not a generative phase as much. Now, all of this stuff is evolving. So I'm just trying to simplify it. In the discovery phase, the idea is often named or identified by a human. Now, there's a lot of inputs into identifying an idea, but I'm going to call that a more human thing. Defining the problem is also human. You frame the real problem and the outcome you're after. I will say we are a Claude shop and Claude is also quite good at helping with these things, but I don't see very many clients completely outsourcing this to AI. The next phase of review is often asynchronous. You review that definition of the problem. The PRD is the product requirements document. So design, engineering, product, they weigh in asynchronously before a kickoff meeting. And this kickoff meeting is the first one that I've identified as a critical expert checkpoint. So you could have one person that's maybe not an expert in this stuff, taking the idea, defining the problem, and reviewing. But in this kickoff meeting is very critical that someone like a product owner or a domain expert makes sure that you're solving the right problem and that it's actually the user's problem, not the business's idea of a problem or not a literal reflection of just something someone requested, right? And this matters the most for scaling products, regulated or high stakes domains like, that fintech dashboard that I showed, that is high stakes. I mean, when somebody uses a tool regularly and they go in and now their entire user flow is disrupted by something that you thought was cool, that's really problematic. And so an expert would be able to identify that. And expertise matters a lot there. This is directionality. Now, the product owner review of that PRD is a more in-depth version of that same thing. Like, is the PRD matching real intent? Is it just plausibility? And then this is kind of speaking back to that bias. Now, in a PRD, it's less about an aesthetic bias, but it can be a refinement bias. AI does fill in gaps, and it's super helpful. But an expert product owner is going to be able to say, this is a little off. And that goes back to that refinement part. Hey, you can refine it and make it more right. And then when that is designed or prototyped, I know that not all projects involve this phase, but a lot of them do. A senior designer is going to be able to say, is this the right solution? Or is it just a median solution that is polished? And critically, does it fit into the user's real workflow? An expert can do so much in this, and it's amazing how AI can do so much so fast, all these, but it's an imitation of the human mind, and the human mind is capable of so much more inference, especially if they've had years of experience, to just catch things really quickly and not miss stuff. And obviously that's going to continue, AI is going to continue to get better and better at that. But we see this a lot where getting an expert involved to review the designs, man, it saves you so much time, so many problems later, and it can be short. So if I go back to this, instead of it being like every day they're working on this, just take a high leverage moment and say, oh yeah, let's get this in front of so and so, and have them review it before we keep going on it. All right. So then in the technical reviews, this is absolutely critical. The feasibility, the data model, performance, and scale. This technical review is really, I made these circles kind of different sizes because it's like, well, how critical is it? I mean, this one is super duper critical. And the architects, the engineers that we work with at Tech9, we have phenomenal experts. And I am amazed at how effectively they can review this stuff. And they also know how to use AI to look at the right things so that they're not manually combing through everything. They can do a technical review really quickly by framing that review effectively. And then, that build. Now, this is kind of the crazy fast part, right? Something can be built. Our developers at Tech9, we're not writing any code anymore. We are instructing AI to write the code and then reviewing them. And that build has a lot of different stuff to check for senior engineer. Maintainability, security, basically edge cases and stress tests and things like that. The QA is often automated. We've gotten to be more and more effective in how we do QA with AI. But there is a phase at Tech9 that we've learned is a very helpful, I will say potent expert checkpoint, which is design acceptance testing. Does the built product match the design intent? Does it catch things that maybe automated tests could miss? This is another phase where it's like, just have a synchronous review. Look at the stuff before you push it into production. And if you have an expert on the call, like, it can literally take 30 minutes and you just flag a few things and you scrape that transcript and you run it into Cloud and you fix these problems. And it's like, you save your users from that. And saving your users from frustration or problems or edge cases that you didn't calculate, that is a trust thing. And any business that relies on tech to be a critical part of their trust that they build with their clients, it pays dividends when you take the right time to make sure that you're not subjecting them to that as much. All right, so those are the expert judgment touch points that I have here. The only other thing I was going to mention is that this process, we could draw a bracket around it and just say there's also the ongoing context and systems, skills, etc., that experts can build into your process so that over time, the ideation or the definition of the problem, or basically all these things, your agentic system gets better and better and better over time at doing it more right, and it requires less expert judgment. It's a virtuous cycle of, okay, your engineers, your designers, your experts are doing more through this process, and they're feeding the context into this cycle so that it gets better over time. So that's just another, good thing about it. All right, so look at your process and think, okay, where are the stars in my process? If your purview is specific to one part of the software delivery lifecycle, then you can ask yourself, what are the sub steps? What are the activities that are happening in here? A lot of times it's your own role definition. I find this in my role is like, okay, I've got a lot of stuff on my plate. I've got a lot of, parts of the product that matter. Well, what ones matter the most, and what is the time when I need to be more involved as a human and as an expert? And then if you have people on your team, or if you have employees, or who owns these different checkpoints. So if you're at a position where you have different roles, and the cool thing is these things are blurring together, right? Well, who are the experts at those checkpoints? Maybe you have a team of one, but likely you have several people, um, and likely they have different expertises and skill sets. The most distilled version of this that I've been seeing is the definition of a creative builder and then an expert systems architect. These two roles are different, and let's just make sure that one of those experts is in these kind of preliminary phases, and then the other experts in the later ones. So who owns each expert checkpoint? Are they in the room at the right moment? The figurative room. Make sure that they have visibility into it. Do you have visibility baked into their workflow? Do you have a fractional resource? This is kind of our expertise. We provide fractional resources, which is just so helpful in this age of agentic engineering, because you may not need, sometimes you still do, but you may not need a full-time employee for a thing. And so you have a fractional resource. Are they looped in at the right times? That's the biggest bummer that I see sometimes, is maybe you have an expert, but you're worried about them slowing you down in the wrong way. Well, can you make sure that they have the right visibility and that they understand their role? How can they contribute in the best way so that they slow you down when it matters, but they don't feel like they're creating a bottleneck? You should be excited about the speed that AI provides, but if you over-index on speed, then there's a price to pay later. Sometimes. Okay. And then, what are the highest leverage moments for you to involve experts? I think that there is a smart calculation that every business owner that's using software needs to ask themselves. These are the trade-off questions, right? Well, now I have Claude. Maybe I don't need a designer to generate a first version of design, because I have a really great product owner that can define the PRD and just run it with Claude, and Claude's going to create a version 1. I think that that's smart for a lot of companies. But maybe it's after that, and then refine that there's a high leverage moment to involve an expert to review that and to find the gaps. And then when they find a gap that AI is not solving effectively, give them some time to solve it with their expertise. One example I gave at the top of the webinar is, well, if you're a startup and you're trying to figure out what your users even want, you want to fail fast. And so it's not high leverage for you to slow down too much, because you want to just get something out there, test it, and then get to where you have data to inform your decisions. In that case, your highest leverage moment is security and scalability and speed, and having experts that are really good at understanding user feedback and translating that into insight. So look at your process. Where are the stars? Okay. So the teams that are winning aren't the ones with the best prompts. They're the ones that know when to put an expert in the loop. There are different sizes for different teams, but keeping the experts in the loop, that's kind of the name of the game here. So that kind of wraps up that. I think my timing was pretty good. Let's see, Q&A time. I think that's going to shift how we are. I think it's going to stop my screen share. Let's see. All right, we are moving into Q&A. Drop some questions in the chat. I think we have a couple other channels for people to provide questions. Okay. All right. Got a question from Marilyn. Which roles do you think become most critical to the software delivery lifecycle from here? It's actually kind of an easy question. If we're doing like a draft, right? Like what's the first draft pick? It's a very obvious first draft pick that you're going to pick a seasoned architect. You need an engineer that has the ability to build this thing the right way, make sure that it's being built the right way, make sure that it can scale, make sure that it's secure, make sure that it can actually load. The second one is a creative builder, someone that can understand what users' needs are, what usability looks like, and how to refine the what part. So yeah, the number one pick would be an engineer, and then the second one would be a creative builder. All right, John, how are you handling the change in percentage of time needed for certain roles, such as a lot more time on manual verification as the coding is so much faster? Yeah, this does need to, it's actually a question for the experts that you have in those roles. So I hope that's not too much of the plug, the extension cord plugging into itself. But for example, when we have a senior dev that is pioneering this agentic effort, they're the ones that can tell me how much time is going to be needed for these things moving forward. Sometimes that's a trust exercise, but there is a trust but verify process that as you see it, then you're able to verify that it's working well. One example of this is with QA. It's like, okay, we know that QA can scale down. Well, how much? Well, we don't know yet, but we're going to experiment with some different processes, and that will inform us. So the teams themselves, it's a little reminiscent of when you're doing story pointing. Who should do the story pointing? Well, it should be the people that are doing the thing. That also tends to be what we've seen as far as how do you know how much percentage to manage of who's involved in how much. All right, Carlos, how long have you folks been providing AI related services? There's kind of layers to this. We've been doing AI for quite a long time. Our founder, Nick, him and our other founder, Billy, that the two of them, as well as a few other architects, have been even building AI models since before I was like cognizant that this was developing. And so there is some longstanding expertise in AI here at Tech9. As far as agentic delivery, we've been trying to be as cutting edge as we can without compromising the quality that is our core value. So Tech9 is committed to quality by choice. And if radical adoption compromises quality, and quality meaning how good something like works and looks, but also the quality of the architecture and the foundation of it, then we are going to be slowing down more. But even, I wish I had like a number, Carlos, for like when we started to actually start cranking out code. But we even explored partnerships with some developing AI partners before Sonnet was released. I will answer one more thing with that, which is a lot of the current products that we have right now, the products that we're building for our clients are AI products. And so the way that we've been defining this internally is we've been doing a lot with AI, and it's in two halves. One is we're building systems and software using AI to enable us to be more efficient and build better stuff. So those things might still be computational or algorithmic. We're also building a lot of AI tools. And as we build things that don't use AI, we are trying to be consultative about how you might start to incorporate AI to have more efficiency in the thing that maybe you weren't using AI for. So on the AI product side, the products that are AI oriented, we do a lot of consulting on what models to use, whether it should be built custom, and a lot of the QA practices to ensure that you're getting good outputs and you're not being wasteful with your token usage, etc. All right. Chris Ryan, what is the lightest weight process you recommend for a small team using AI on large builds to prevent drift? Okay, I gotta wrap my head around that. Okay, so PRD, architecture, decision records, review gates, test plans, or something else. It depends on how large. That's the tricky thing with this. So it is kind of surprising how small you can go, but sometimes it's a question of how equipped is your code base for optimization and agentic implementation. So if I was whiteboarding right now, I would draw this, but the way that code and products used to be built, and I say used to be a little tongue in cheek because they're still built this way a lot of time, is like a factory, and the factory has rooms in it, and stuff comes in the first room. That team or that process, they do it, and then it gets passed to the next process. And AI enablement essentially means we're making each one of those rooms in the factory more efficient. Maybe it's faster, less manual, stuff like that. That is what I would define as AI enablement, and it is much faster, but is not revolutionary. It's just more efficient. If you are able to transfer your process or convert, this is essentially what we're calling AI modernization. It's like reminiscent of classic modernization into an agentic environment. Then all of a sudden you can do something with one or two devs that used to take 5 or 6, or it is possible that you can be that efficient. And if this is like a new large build, I guess you're talking about preventing drift, so that's less likely about a new build. But one developer can manage a lot of this for new builds because the AI has all of the context already. Chris, it's a great question, and maybe there's a follow-up there if we want to be more specific. Any other questions? Maybe not. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Something that I mentioned at the top that is always on my mind with this stuff is when as soon as the ink dries, it's outdated. That is true for this, but as we've seen, even just over the past year, it's almost like every 6 or 8 weeks something new is released that could be transformative. The principles keep staying the same, and I think it'll be unlikely that the principles of defining the right what and ensuring the right how, I doubt that those principles are going to change. We just might keep getting new layers of efficiency on there. Okay, Jeff, if coding was a bottleneck in the past, where is it now? I want to say something that's like maybe an oversimplification, but this is just my experience and opinion. It's in defining the problem. It's making the smart decision of the what. If AI enables you to incorporate Tetris into Zoom, does that mean that you should? Well, it is not true that anything and everything is additive. And this is an age-old problem with products. When you have them stuffed with too many features, not only do you build things that aren't used, but you dilute the value of the thing that's like the main reason people use that tool. And I'm sure you can all think of these things. I did use Zoom as a joke, but Zoom is like this. Zoom has become so feature rich. And part of that is I may not be the right user for some of the things that they've built, but it is harder to do the main things when there's so many things. And so the refinement and identifying the exact right things to do, and then making sure that they're done in the most excellent way is more of the new bottleneck. And we're seeing this a lot in Silicon Valley and startups. Anyone, literally, like, I'm one of those anyones. I can build an app now, and I used to be pretty limited. I'd have to partner with someone that's a lot more technical. Now I can build stuff. But do I even have the right idea? Do I have a distribution model? I mean, that's another bottleneck now is, do you have the marketing and the distribution? Can you get it in front of the right customers? Do you have product market fit? These are old bottlenecks, but code isn't really that bottleneck anymore. All right, you mentioned 2 critical roles for the agentic enabled SDLC. Can you tell us more about these roles and why those 2 are most important? It's kind of addressing the same thing that I was just saying, which is that first role, the creative builder, really determines the what. Now, I think that it's useful a lot of times to have multiple roles here, but as a product design person, I'm biased in saying I think that product designers are uniquely suited to do this because by nature and by training, they are creative problem solvers. And creativity, one definition of creativity, is the ability to create analogies out of experiences and transpose those into new situations. And so creatives do this naturally. They see a problem and they relate it to a similar problem, and it gives them the creative ability to create a new problem, create a new solution. So that first role, being a creative builder, this is essentially a product owner or a designer. It can certainly be a developer, but their role, or the hat that they're wearing in that first core role, is understand the problem, be creative and smart about how you create a solution, and then build that solution, and ideally test it and iterate, or pass that through to the expert builder or the expert architect to make sure that it is done in a systematized, stable, secure way. All right, Chris had a follow-up. Okay. He said, I'm seeing on my small teams, AI can shrink the team size, but it doesn't shrink the complexity of the build. Super true. So work that used to be coordinated across 20 people can now get compressed into 2 people managing multiple AI-assisted branches. My concern is that drift doesn't go away. It just moves into fewer human judgment points. Yeah, no, it's a good insight, Chris. And what's nice about the coordination is it becomes a lot simpler. There's an exponential communication clarity decay with every new point that you add in any communication web, right? So if you've got 2 people, and this is why like startups are great. It's like, okay, it's 2 people, it's add a third person. All right, now it's 3, it's kind of a lot more, but it's still really concise. When you have so many people, it's just very difficult to coordinate, and you actually end up with a lot more, degradation of intent, or gaps emerge. And so in our new agentic pods, Tech9 pods are essentially 3 people, sometimes up to 5, but typically it's 3 people. Man, it's been really refreshing because that communication is so succinct, and we all share a knowledge base in the cloud repository, and so there's a lot of context that is inherent and automatically adopted into any new conversation you're having. So I might just be kind of meandering into the things that I'm excited about with this, Chris, but it is true that the drift can happen, especially with an existing system. All right, got another question. I know Jeff is feeding questions in from a different, I think it's from a Slack, but all right. What have you seen with vibe-coded solutions done quickly versus software that is scalable and integrated into an existing code base? How does the expert in the loop impact this? Vibe-coded solutions are not scalable by nature. They're not intended to be. If they were automatically scalable, they wouldn't come together so fast, and then you kind of defeat the purpose of vibe coding it. Vibe coding is such a cool thing because you give it vibes, aka like kind of loose thoughts, and it captures it and it codes it in a way that helps you capture the idea. Um, and I think that the tricky part with a vibe coded solution is it's kind of that same fidelity thing where it tricks you into thinking that, well, this, why not just apply this to my system? Well, it's not scalable yet, and it may introduce new problems. So that's where the expert in the loop can impact this. There's kind of two junctures for an expert when it comes to vibe coded stuff. By the way, I want to reinforce vibe coded stuff rules, because what used to be such a difficult bridge to cross for people to collaborate in software was a material artifact to speak to the thing they're talking about. And it's a little bit of a designer's superpowers because we can go up and draw it, and it really helps get the conversation going. Well, now a person can vibe with Claude or one of these other tools, and then now there's an artifact and we can speak to it. But you would never just like, okay, the vibe coded thing is done, let's take it and ship it, because the first expert juncture is, let's review it, let's talk about it, let's discuss, just before we even get into the nuts and bolts of it, generally speaking, what are the limitations of this? What could it be? Should we improve the vibe coded version first? So the first expert in this process should be a review of the vibe coded stuff. And we would just do that, at Tech9 in just a consultative, collaborative environment. Show it and talk about it and capture the notes and stuff. And then once that has been refined or verified or validated, then the next one is an architectural audit of how does this become scalable? And it's kind of a sizing exercise, and it's also, what are the cascading effects of, if you do this, this is the best thing a dev can do for a business owner. Option 1, done in 2 weeks. Option 2, done in 6 months. It's like, well, option 2 isn't that much better, so let's do option 1 anyway. That's what an expert can do, is help you understand the cost benefit analysis of things that maybe the vibe code made seem simple. So, right. Thanks, John. I take all compliments. Any compliments, just bring them on. Right. Cool. Yes, Carlos. Like, honestly, that is, to me, the point of vibe coding. It's rapid prototyping. And frankly, our loop now, we still use Figma at Tech9. And Tech9, and Figma has AI tools in it as well. But we use Claude to even prototype something that we started to build in Figma, and Figma becomes a very useful example of a tool for a low fidelity representation of, like, here's kind of what I'm going at. Feed that into Claude, vibe code a solution, screenshot that, bring it into Figma, make some tweaks. It's a really nice magnifier. Essentially, like, it used to be very difficult to take an idea and just like grab a corner of it and scale it up, but that's essentially what vibe coding does. It's like, here's an idea, whoop, now it's very fleshed out, and now you can speak to it. And we use prototypes as a scoping mechanism, and I think it's a game changer. I wish we could just patent that, but anyone can do it. You should. Like, instead of trying to use a written document to capture requirements, build a prototype and then review the prototype, and then feed that prototype to Claude to make a written version of it. If you want to then feed that into Linear or Jira or something, go ahead. But ultimately, it's the prototype that has proven to be a much better scoping tool, because it's not words. It's the thing that they can expect, and they can compare the thing definition of done to the prototype. And the prototype, well, yeah, in the prototype, you click this, this happens, and you don't have to reference words to show that. Right. Well, webinars are cool, but I wish there were human people here. I like seeing people's names here, but it would be cool if it was real faces. Anything else? So maybe so. All right. Sounds like we can wrap it up. Really love the participation. Would welcome any feedback or follow-up questions. If this type of thing is interesting to you, please join us for, we have leadership lunches. We have a lot of efforts put together to come together and talk about this stuff. We all need each other. I mean, this is such a fast-moving target. You can't keep up unless you've got people to learn from and to learn with. So if you're in the Salt Lake area, join us physically. We'll have more webinars like this. And I'll just say on a personal note, I'd love to connect with any of you, on LinkedIn and talk through how you're doing things. I feel really lucky that I'm doing something that is cool and exciting and I love to talk about. So love to learn from you guys too. Any of you. So if you scan this QR code, I think it's probably in the, oh, there is no chat. Okay. That's a QR code. Scan it and it should take you to a place where you can sign up to be in the Tech9 Leadership Network. A pretty cool group of people that continues to grow a lot, and love to see you involved there. Thanks, everyone.